Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to another Artemis Fowl Scratch Offs podcast.
Yes, and today we're finally getting to book 6, titled The Time Paradox.
Yes, and this is one of the stanzas of the entire series.
Yes, actually.
This is Artemis.
Yes, that's pretty
Level.
much what's called, Artemis the book. And it's considered by a lot of people to be the best book in the series, and the second best would be The Opal Deception. And a lot of people did end up loving this book because of the creative plot, where it seemed like it was going to be standard, but he does a lot of things different. Of course, he basically confirms Artemis, even though some others didn't get it. And it's just a lot of action. It's a really big escalating plot. And for others, it's for some reason they don't like it either. So kind of a weird catch-22 here.
Oh, well. If this is your first time joining us, Scratch Offs are what we call lines that are in the book that say one thing, but underneath there's an underlying message of what the character really wanted to say, or Owen Colfer couldn't print.
Right.
Artemis Fowl,
which they've done before.
is a book series written by Owen Colfer, who's brilliant and a genius, and it consists of 8 novels plus some graphic novels. We recommend the book series. If you haven't read it before, it's available at your local library, but just go ahead and buy it, because once you read the first book, you're going to want to own the whole set. And it's appropriate for age 8 to 80 to 800. Colfer himself has said that the book was written for every age, even though your library may put a certain
Like elementary
genre
on it,
for
yeah,
it,
or
right.
juvenile. They
But
keep
it's for
doing
everyone.
it. Yeah,
This is anything with juvenile.
right. Now, for this particular book, it said we are over halfway through the book series, and in this one, Artemis' mother gets sick with supposed to be a fairy disease, and they don't know how she got it. It's sort of left up to the reader to figure out as you go along. And the only cure is within the silky fur lemur. And in this universe, it's a rare species, and Artemis ended up killing the last one years ago when he was 10. So in here, he and Holly go back in time to get the lemur, and we're going to use it, bring it back to the present so they can extract the cure from it. And along the way, they actually end up switching ages, so he ends up being older than her, and it ends up being a really crazy book, and just basically him saying, look, it's right here, what are you not getting?
And if you forgot from the last book, they time travel and ended up switching an eye each. So he has one of her eyes, and she has one of his eyes.
Right, and here they swap ages. Right. So here we go. So here we kind of go.
So if you have this book, you can follow along with Rascal as she reads the original line, and then we read the scratch offs immediately.
Right. But yeah, physical or digital works either way.
Absolutely.
Alright, so the first one, we actually start a few chapters in after they show what happened to his mother, and they're pretty much setting up the time travel aspect. And they go with Holly and Foley talking how much they've been through so far together by this book, and her view on Artemis has changed. And it says that Holly no longer saw Artemis as a human, but now as a friend. And then Mama said, just by judge of that line,
oh boy, she's gone now.
because if you remember, she kind of just had this real disdain for humans, but now Artemis is an exception.
And then ponders if she's lying in the message.
Yeah, when he sends about the mom and says she's sick, and then there's like a little bit of doubt goes off in her head. Is like, what if he's lying? And it's like,
and I'm like, you just said.
Like, oh well, she's back now. Well, I guess old habits die hard.
Right.
Okay, so a little bit later, when they have Foley and Number One, and they explain that they can actually time travel with the help of Number One. He has to open a portal. And in here, the weird little take on time travel in here, and I guess it's a shout out to the Terminator Judgment Day, when the robots came and they were not wearing anything. In here, to time travel, you have to not have any clothes on.
I think they had their underwear on.
Oh yes, yeah, they did in here. But I think that was a shout out to that movie.
Yes.
And in here, because of the time travel thing and yada yada, clothes could just probably be permanent parts of their skin, so they had to like wear as little clothing as possible. And like, this is a really odd excuse just to do this. Are you sure nothing's happening? And then they had to like join hands and make sure they get lost in the time stream without each other. And then Number One kind of like jokingly says, "I now pronounce you man and elf."
And I'm like, foreshadowing Foreshadowing.
It's like, wow, could you make it any more obvious of what's going on? And somehow people didn't get it.
Exactly.
Okay, so they kind of explained, like, someone explained the process, and they just went down to, like, bare minimum. Don't worry, it's not graphic, doesn't go anywhere like that, but they kind of have Artemis. The only thing he had was some Armenian boxer shorts, and it's like, oh, it's even fancy just as the suits. Thought that was funny. And this is a little bit foreshadowing for what happens later when they get back in time. And there's this thing where Holly actually acts really differently when she's a little younger, and they kind of blame it on hormones. And Mama said this might have been one of the reasons it happened before it got to that point. And
before they left, they were both in her underwear, and she commented on him in his briefs. I'm like, well, she saw him in his briefs before she left. Maybe that made her hormones.
Right? Like the last thing
she's
there.
An innocent little elf, so
Right? Okay. So then when they actually
he's
get
no trouble, so
not again. Okay, so jumping a little forward a bit. Something goes a little wrong when they time travel. Because that they were focusing on different things, their mindsets were different. So when they got to the past, Holly was back to being a younger teenager, and this is where people kind of got the confusion. Thought, okay, she's much older in terms of being 20 or 30. She's back to being a teenager, and then Artemis, because he thinks older, he's 18 or 19.
But what she said exactly was, I'm not much older than you are now.
Right.
So that's letting you know there's not a big age gap.
Right. So in here, she said, in human terms, yes, you actually just said it for me. He said, wow, it was just straight out of the academy. In human terms, I'm barely older than Artemis. Is that for some reason this thought disturbed her, and then she just said, get some pants on. Like, why are you freaking out now?
And I'm like, there goes
and this is it. Yes, this is the whole thing. It's like, as soon as they got there, she kind of lost it.
And if you've read the book, or you're going to read the book, there's much more that's involved in the thoughts in her head, and you'll see exactly what she was thinking, which you'll understand why I keep saying, okay, hormones.
Right?
Hormones.
Okay, and then okay, then there's actually two within the same chapter. Artemis gets attacked by a giant gorilla when they're trying to get the lemur, and he nearly dies. I mean, he's really, really badly beaten, so bad that they had to barely describe how it was. And she was really freaking out and healed him with the magic, and it was like a real shock to the system. And she was so happy that he was alive that she actually kissed him.
Okay, so that you understand, not on the cheek, not on the forehead, she kissed him on the lips.
Right, and it was a shock to pretty much both of them. They said, okay, well, think about this later.
Peck.
Right, and they said, okay, think about this later, which they do. They actually do hold off till later. So once they're out of danger and everything, Holly actually gets shot with the tranquilizer. And when they find Mulch there, he kind of leaves her with him till he gets back, tries to get the lemur himself, and he fails. But when he gets back, she finds out that Holly's like buried underneath a mound of dirt, and he kind of asks him, well, why? What happened to her? And Mulch pointed to a grave-shaped mound of earth. It's like, well, that's not good. He said, I buried the captain. She was moaning quite loudly. Already this and already that, with a few mothers thrown in. I was like, okay, what was she saying in her sleep that made him bury her? That's the closest thing to innuendo this series gets. it's like, oh, okay, Holly. Like, Holly?
You know, I'll just leave it to your imagination. I'm not going to write anything.
It's like,
you figure it out.
It's like, Holly, what the
and
heck?
It's in the elementary section.
Yes. And then not so long after that, when she gets her out of the ground, the first thing she thinks of is like, oh my gosh, I kissed you. It's like, okay, well, now we know. And then it was supposed to be like she didn't mean to do it and all that. And then Mom said,
you didn't kiss him because puberty, which is what she claimed. You kissed Artemis because Artemis.
No.
And we forgot to mention to you that he not only looks older, but he's taller, and
his
he
hair
has long hair
really
like
long.
Aizawa,
Yeah.
MHA, and Holly was saying all this crap before they even left, because she's like, I mean, as soon as they got to the new time,
yeah,
and she was looking at him like, you're taller, your hair's longer, and it was like, also like Star,
yeah, with
she
Marco.
saw Marco in the future, like,
right. Yeah, so basically it's all that. And then fast forward quite a bit, like the chapters are pretty long. So there's this point where Artemis actually lied to Holly about, you know, what happened. He's the one actually, he thinks he caused the mom to get the sickness, but he lies and said, oh, it was her. And he feels pretty guilty about it, which shows, you know, how much his growth has been, because he would have just kept it to himself. So he finally decides, you know, to come clean because she's getting really close to him. It's like, I can't do this. So he tells her the truth, and of course, you know, she's really not happy about this. And a really interesting thing about this aspect is that usually when they do this thing like, oh, the guy lied to the girl, so now she's gonna be angry with him the whole book or story, yada yada. But that actually doesn't happen as long in here, because yes, she is upset, but not as much as you think, because she immediately says, like within the monologue, is that she's not that angry. She understands why he did it.
And she may have done the same thing in his
right. So it was just her, because she's younger, more emotional. That's why she reacted much strongly. And if he didn't have to lie, she would have done it if he had asked. So the Artemis finds a way to make it up to her, and they're pretty much made up. But when she says to him, and it's like, really means nothing. People thought that it was over after this. He said, well, your elf kissing days are over. And Mom's like,
oh, you're back to normal in book 7.
yeah, wait till we get to that. That's just like overboard.
Yeah.
And Artemis says, so I see. And she said, it's not a challenge, Artemis. And I said, he said, I see. How does that translate to him making a challenge? He's like, okay, fine.
And I'm like, because she wanted him to try again. I really want you to try. I'm telling you now to. I really want you to try.
What kind of game?
Blame it on hormones.
What kind of game are you playing? Okay,
or Holly.
So after this, they're back to being friends again, and like I said, it doesn't last long, which is really great. No one's really ever done it where it's cut short and it's not her acting like a jerk the entire rest of the story, which I really give praise to Owen for, because that trope. So then Mulch actually ended up saying a comment to them, like he kind of gets the idea that they're already together, and he knows he's human, she's a fairy.
But
and
some readers don't get it, but the character within the book gets it.
Right.
All the people in Haven get it. Some readers don't.
Right. And Mulch says, that's just weird. What kind of weirdo kisses someone who's not even their own species? And it's like a shot at the ship. And then Mom said,
this is a two-parter. First, lucky for Mulch, because no species looking at him.
Right.
And 2, foreshadowing.
Right. And then we need to establish Mulch isn't really into the interspecies thing, so it is part of his character. And then we actually have to skip towards the end of the book, because we definitely don't want to spoil all the huge things that go on, because it's definitely a ride. We will not spoil all the twists and turns and everything. These are just the fun parts. So when they get back to the regular timeline, they're swapped back to visual ages. Artemis is back to being 15, but really 18 because of the missing years. Holly's back to being
not
18.
Much older.
Yeah, really, pretty much. Yeah, probably not being much older. And then there's this one line that Mama actually caught when we read the book, and Artemis just said, "If only." And I was like, what, wait, that meant something? And you said,
now that's the reversal from the book. He wanted Holly instead of Holly wanting Artemis.
Right.
And that's a major radar point right in that book.
Right, I was like,
if only.
Like, only what? Like, if only what? I don't want to know. Like, this is, so-called elementary.
Now, I'm sure someone will go, he was just thinking if only he hadn't lied. Yeah, if that's what he was thinking, that's what he would have said. That's what Owen Colfer would have written.
Right.
No, it was meant to be innuendo for you to figure it out, because this book is not for elementary children.
Right, and a lot of people point out, well, actually, one guy actually pointed out, he said, despite them going back to original ages, the feelings were still there. So this wasn't just because she was a teenager and it went away. This thing lingers and stays for the last 2 books. So the final thing will be a bonus when they take JJ back to Haven so they can make the cure. And Holly leaves this... Right. And Holly makes this one line that no one can decipher. This has been online. People don't know what it means, and maybe you do. And we'll see.
No, let us know in the comments.
Right. She goes to Artemis, and she just says, in another time, and she kisses him on the cheek. And no one's been able to decipher this. What kind of cryptic line was that? It's like, what does she mean? Nobody, not us, not online. People put that quote, and no one really knows what it means. Like, what does that mean? What do you mean in another time? People kind of thought, oh, she got over him and now she's going to go with someone else. But that doesn't really happen.
Book 7, you know that's not it.
No, so yeah, we really don't know what this one means, but we wanted to bring it up because it's a real popular line people have seen.
She hoped that maybe she wishes they didn't have to go back to their regular time.
Well, actually, they do. She does say that in the book. She said it wouldn't be so bad if we just stayed this age. So it's like, okay, no, we need to get you back to the regular timeline. And that's
tall Artemis. Artemis, a handsome Artemis.
So, and that's pretty much the end
Which
for
is
the
also
scratch off.
foreshadowing for book 7.
Yes.
When we get to the Atlantis complex, you'll
And,
see
oh man, that
that's
was really crazy.
Foreshadowing when she keeps talking about how tall he is.
Yes, like a lot of times, yeah. So that's it for the Time Paradox scratch offs. This was very heavy in foreshadowing and Artemis stuff, and it's unfortunate people just don't get it or they thought it was weird.
And the next book, oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. If you haven't read it, you're gonna love hearing about this, and it's really gonna make you want to read this series. If you've read Artemis Fowl and you've read this book, let us know what you think in the comments. Are there any scratch-offs you want to divulge to us that you saw while you were reading it? Let us know as well.
Right, and be sure to like, subscribe, click notification bell to get some future podcasts and more pause videos.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have fun next time, oh man.
So we will see you for book 7, The Atlantis Complex.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Mask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.